Yeah, so I am recording the session. Yeah, last class we have been discussing about recovery catalog, and we understood that it is a separate database in which you are going to maintain the RMAN backup information. Usually this information will be stored in control files, but when we lost all the control files, we may land up in a situation that we don't have any backup information at all. So just to avoid those kind of situations, we are having this concept of having recovery catalog, where the backup of multiple databases is going to be stored, or the backup information of multiple databases will be stored. And basically, even in that case, if we lost the control files of target database, still this recovery catalog information will help us in order to do the recovery and all those actions. So I'm just showing you how we need to proceed with the recovery catalog configuration. So I have two servers here. Just for our understanding, I'm just making a color coding here. Oops. Okay, so I have given a color coding where black screen is the target database and white screen I have is recovery catalog database. So here I have already created one database by the name rcatdb. So you can see there is a database up and running by the name rcatdb, that is my recovery catalog database. Just exporting Oracle SID. Okay. And here I have a database by the name ProdDB up and running. Because it is not up and running, might be it is down. So let me start the database. Okay, just give me a moment. Okay, so we have a database here by the name ProdDB, and here we have another database by the name rcatdb. And now I want this rcatdb to act as recovery catalog to my target database, that is ProdDB. So for that, just see what are all the steps that we are going to follow. So the same steps are there in your class notes also. First step is to create the database. First step is to create a table space in any of the existing databases. For example, here I am going to create one table space. So I am saying create table space name. Usually we will give the table space name as Arman TBS, but it is up to you. If you wish to have a different name, then also it is possible. And size, initially I am giving it as 100 MB. Then as a next step, we are going to create a user, and usually I go by the name Arman_RC, but if you want, you can give any other name. there is no restriction. And what we are doing is, while creating this user, we are making this admin TBS as the default table space for that user. There is a byte keyboard missing. So while creating this user, what I am doing is I am making that table space whatever I have created earlier. I am making that table space as the default table space for this user. And after that, I am granting 3 roles to this user, admin underscore RC. One is connect role, second one is resource role, and the third one is recovery underscore catalog underscore owner. So this is the third step that we are doing. Then we need to exit from here and we need to connect to catalog database, that is the same database, with the help of this admin RC user. So once you say admin catalog admin slash RC, I mean the username and password, it is going to display an acknowledgement saying that it got connected to the recovery database. And here you need to say create catalog. So when you run this command create catalog, what Oracle is going to do is, in this user admin underscore RC, Oracle will create multiple tables or views, etc. So for example, if you connect admin RC slash admin RC, and if you say select start from tab, you can see there are so many views and tables, etc. So So you can see tables and views are there. All these tables and views will be created with the help of this command create catalog. So this particular command create catalog is going to create all those tables and views. And why these tables and views are required? Why? Because in those tables or views only, whatever the backup information of the target database is there, that is going to be stored here. So things didn't end here. So we just created the catalog. Now what we need to do is, we need to configure this or we need to combine, or we need to club this recovery catalog database with our target database information. So for that we need to go back to target database, and here we need to first configure DNS names.org. I'm just moving to Oracle home / network admin. So there are so many entries over here. So we need to put an entry for the database which is there on the other side. So I'm just creating a TNS entry for that. So that database name is RCADDB and it is residing on 174 server, and the listener probably it's listening on this one. But if I say TNS string of RCADDB, then it is pinging out. So now what we need to do is, we need to execute this command admin target slash then catalog admin underscore RC slash admin underscore RC at the rate of RCADDB. So by this you are actually connecting to both the target database and the recovery catalog database. So we got similar, you people already know how to handle this. So I'm just proceeding replacing this one. Oops. So Fine. So there is some issue here with the registration of the listener. So here you can see there is a listener which is running with the name listener underscore prod.db, and it is listening to prod.db instance. But our database is rcat.db, so that's the problem. First I am stopping this listener. This is just networking with Oracle, which you might have practiced it. So that's why I am going a bit fast. So I'm opening listener.ora, and here let me change the name. So it's rcat.db. Now I am starting up the listener, which should listen to only rcat.db. So now this command might work. So you can see it is saying it has connected to both the target database as well as recovery catalog database. And now you need to say register database. So this command is going to register your target database information in recovery catalog. That means this database prod.db information is going to be recorded into rcat.db database. So that is how we are going to perform the recovery catalog configuration. And the moment you have recovery catalog configuration, one change that you need to follow is every time whenever you want to connect to RMAN for taking the backup of database, then you need to connect to both the recovery catalog as well as the target database. That means the moment you have recovery catalog created, from that moment onwards you need to connect to both the databases. Okay, and here RMAN, RMAN stands for the executable command, and target means you want to connect to the target database with what user slash user, that means sys user, and along with target database you want to connect to catalog database also with what user, that is rmin underscore rc user or any other user with which name you have created, and this rmin underscore rc is the password of this user at the rate of what is your recovery catalog database name. So you are going to provide this complete thing. So I mean, if you want to configure recovery catalog or you want to take backup after that or anything you want to do, you need to connect to both the target database is saying target slash, and you need to connect to catalog also saying catalog username slash password at the rate of that catalog database name. Is that clear, Fanny? So that is what I am saying that. So from now onwards, whenever you want to take the backup or you want to recover something, you want to do any activity regarding RMAN, then you need to connect to both the target database as well as the catalog database. So anyone is having any queries? ArcadeDB is a separate database. Like using DBC only, you need to create it. If you take a fresh server, you need to install whatever the version you have for this target database. And using DBCA, you need to create a database. Recovery catalog is also a database. So any other queries from anyone? Okay, so let us proceed with the next topic, that is performance tuning. So basically performance tuning, as we know it already, or the name itself is saying that. So performance tuning is something like which we are taking some steps in order to improve the performance of the database. So performance tuning actually is divided into two types. One we call it as proactive performance tuning, and the second one we call it as reactive performance tuning. So what we would be doing majorly in real time is reactive performance tuning, because proactive performance tuning should start from the scratch, or I mean to say proactive performance tuning will come into picture while you are creating the database itself. For example, when you are creating the database, usually what Oracle suggests is to follow OFA mechanism, like optimal flexible architecture, where it will ask you to place the data files, control files, redo log files and archeolog files into multiple hard disks. But for suppose, without following that, if you just created the database just like that, then in future it may lead to definitely some problem, some performance issue. So after getting into that performance problem and then you are resolving it, then it will be a different one. Rather than that, while creating the database itself, if you have taken proper measures, like you followed OFA, you completed multiplexing of redo log files and control files, or you made sure that necessary temporary table spaces are available, or you also make sure that the SG and PJ sizes are good. So if you have taken all these measures in place, then the database performance will be fine as it is. But most of the times, this is where the DBS are going to do the mistake. So they think that just creating the database using DBCA will be fine. Yes, definitely creating database using DBCA is a good one. But while creating the database, we also need to make sure that these OFA things or multiplexing things are implemented, or at least after creating the database with the DBCA, immediately the first thing what we need to do is doing this multiplexing of control files, redo log files, etc. So that is where the proactive tuning is majorly involved in. So right from the scratch, if you are building a server and if you have taken proper measures, then you would be avoiding the things. So usually my habit is to compare the performance tuning with how a doctor is going to analyze the disease, and how doctor is going to give the medication for a patient. uh, for example, let's say there is whenever you take proper care of your body, then you don't require really a tuning, or really you don't require to visit a doctor to undergo some medication. So somewhere, at some point of time, we will give some leisure to our body, so that there could be some issue occurred. For example, you know that it is a rainy season, but you have not taken proper measures, like you don't carry a raincoat, or you are not wearing any helmet. If you don't take proper measures, then what happens is ultimately you would be getting wet in rain, and that may lead to cough, cold, and sometimes fever also. So whatever the precautions that you are going to take in the beginning, that will avoid you to visit a doctor. Similarly, whatever the precautions you take before creating the database or while creating the database will avoid performance tuning in future. So you don't require to do tuning in future if you have taken proper measures in the beginning itself. So that is where we call it as proactive tuning. And coming to reactive tuning, so assume you have not taken proper measures, and anyway you got some disturbance. Your health got upset. So what you would be doing? You would be going to a doctor, and doctor, upon your first visit, no doctor will ask you to go to X-ray report or to go to MRI scan or something like that. So let's say you went to a doctor saying that I have a fever. Then doctor first will check the temperature and all, and he will ask you the symptoms, what are all you are facing, and based on that he will give you the medication. So if the symptoms are a little bit different than a normal fever, then doctor may ask you to go for a blood test, and based on the result of the blood test, doctor may ask you to doctor may suggest you to go for X-ray report or something else, and finally based on the results, the proper medication will be given for you. So if you look at this, doctor is handling your health issue in phases. So first, they are going to identify what kind of fever it is, and based on that, they will go for examination, and based on the examination results, they will go for the next set of medications. So in the same way, whenever a performance tuning occurred in the database, then you are going to go in phases. So first you are going to check different levels of tuning that we have, and finally you will be getting concluded out of it. So that is where in reactive tuning we have different phases of tuning involved. So let me show you that. I think it's there in the class notes. Let me open the class notes. Just bear me with a moment. Meanwhile, anyone is having any queries? Fine. So this is what we are talking about. Proactive tuning is least preferred, in order to, because of some practical problems. And one important thing that we need to remember is, suppose your database is up and running fine, nobody is complaining about performance issues, then you should not do any proactive tuning. For example, your database was created 5 years back, now it is up and running very fine, then you should not go and do any proactive tuning on that. So proactive tuning always should start from the moment when you create the database, not after creating the database. And the reactive tuning, as I said, it is the most preferred one which we will be using it in real time. And whenever you are having any specific performance issue for a query, so usually what happens in real time is application team or some other person is going to give a complaint saying that till yesterday one of my select query is running fine. I mean, it is taking somewhere around 5 seconds or 10 seconds. But today the same select query is going to take 2 minutes or 3 minutes. So we need to analyze a lot many factors which are involved here. Why yesterday it is taking only 5 to 10 seconds and why today it is going more than 2 minutes or 3 minutes. So for that, as I said, in reactive tuning we need to go phase by phase. We have several phases involved here. So starting with the first one, that is a network tuning. So in network tuning, basically we are going to check whether the network is properly configured or whether the network is giving the actual response between the person machine in which the select query was issued and to the database server. So we are going to identify that. So we are going to do a DNS ping from the machine where the user issued the select query to the database server. And if this DNS ping, so whenever you do DNS ping, it is going to display some value like this. Earlier also we saw it here. So whenever you do DNS ping, it is going to give you some message like this, okay, with some milliseconds of time. So here, for suppose when you do a DNS ping and you identified that instead of 0 milliseconds or 10 milliseconds and all, it is showing somewhere like 1000 milliseconds, 2000 milliseconds or 5000 milliseconds. That means definitely there is some problem in the network itself. So in such cases, you need to inform your network administrator because network tuning will not come under the part of DBS. And the one more thing I would like to say is, performance tuning is not only a DBA activity, it is a collaborative effort from every team. So, I mean, if there is a performance issue, it's not only that DBS will be involved in that. Every team like the network administrator, application developer, Unix administrator, or sometimes test engineers, all these people will be involved in order to get that solved. So don't assume that DBA is the only person who need to resolve the issue. DBA should actually collect information from all these people and accordingly they need to take some decision. So that is where as a first step we are going to look into network tuning, where we are going to identify how much time it is taking to do a DNS ping. And if this DNS ping value is too high, then you need to contact your network administrator in order to understand why it is taking more time, to do a ping. So is this point clear, or anyone is having any queries? Let me know. Okay. So let's assume in network is, you observe that network is very fine, there is no issues with the network. In such case, the next phase that we need to travel is application tuning. And in application tuning, basically we are going to identify whether application team or the developers have modified any code in their applications. I mean, like they might have added 10 lines of extra code, or they might have removed the existing code, or within the same code they might have done some changes. So we need to actually look into those things. So what we do in application tuning is, we will be writing down an email, or we will be setting up a call with application team people, and we need to get some information, whether they have done any changes first of all, and if they have done any changes, we need to ask them to revoke those changes. For example, let's say application team has added some extra 10 lines of code, then we need to ask them to remove those 10 lines of code. Now let's say after removing those 10 lines of code, if the database or if the select query is working fine, then definitely we can conclude that the problem is with those 10 lines of code. But taking a situation where application team says we have not done any changes to the application code, then we don't have any other choice rather going to the next phase. So the next phase that is there is SQL tuning. So the problem sometimes might be because of SQL queries that we have written also. Um, I mean, you might the usually developers or the application team itself will write the SQL queries. So DBS may give an extended help, but DBS will never be involved in writing the queries actually, because business logic will be more understood by application team rather than DBS. So whoever sits in front end, so those people will be knowing the business logic a lot, and those people can write a better SQL queries. So that's the reason DBS, because they are in the back end itself. So we don't actually concentrate on writing down the SQL queries and all. So we just give I mean, that will be the task of developers. But if at all developers are unable to do some kind of actions, then you may need to give some support for them. That's it. So in SQL tuning, what basically we are going to understand is, we are going to understand whether we can rewrite the existing form of SQL query. So for example, if you have a requirement that I want data to be retrieved from 2 or 3 tables, for this we can write multiple forms of SQL queries. So sometimes we can use natural join, sometimes we can use equals to operator, sometimes you can use on clause. So there are multiple forms that we can write the select query. But even though we can write 4 or 5 forms, out of them only one will be executed, in short time, and others will take long time. So what we need to do is, always we need to find out what is that query or what is that form which is taking the shortest time, or which form is the best one. So we need to basically do that in SQL tuning. And one thing is, suppose if you want to identify what are all the SQL queries which are giving problem in the database and all, basically we have some reports called ADDM or ASH. So we will be discussing about these reports more and lot in tomorrow's call, tomorrow or day after tomorrow. So basically using those reports we can identify what are all the queries which are giving problem, and accordingly we can update our application team or the development team. So as the point number 3 says on the screen, in real time, most, that is 90% of the tuning problems will be resolved in this phase itself. So for most of the times, the mistakes will happen in writing down the correct SQL query. So if you have done that, then you may not face performance problems at all. So that is about SQL tuning. And one more point I would like to add is, from 10G onwards, you have some component called SQL Tuning Advisor. So that component will actually give you advices. So whenever you submit one SQL query to it, that component will actually tell you, you know, uh, where is the problem in the SQL query, what are all the modifications you can do in SQL query. So it is going to give you that advice. So this is one of the wonderful features that is available in 10G and of course in 11G and 12C also. So it can actually give you the recommendations that somewhere this SQL query is giving problem, or you need to change this line to this line. So it will give you all those recommendations. So that is one of the wonderful components we have. So when we are discussing about Enterprise Manager, I will show you how this SQL Tuning Advisor is going to help you. At the time we will understand more about it. So anyone is having queries? Okay. So let us proceed with the next phase, that is object tuning. So let's say even after performing SQL tuning, still the performance issue is as it is. And let's say your select query is still taking 2 minutes or 3 minutes to retrieve the data instead of 30 seconds or instead of 5 seconds or 10 seconds. Then you need to travel to the next phase, that is object tuning. And in object tuning, we have different subphases. So the first subphase is nothing but analyzing the table or gathering the statistics. So what happens actually is, we know already that optimizer is going to generate execution plans for the select queries. We have read this in architecture already. Suppose, but one point what we didn't look into is, we only know that optimizer will generate the plans, but we never understood how optimizer is going to do that. So actually optimizer, it is a set of algorithms. So these algorithms, what they will do is, they will generate the execution plan for the select query based on something called statistics information of the database. For example, based on the census information, based on the population information, government is going to draw some conclusions. Similarly, based on the statistics of the table, optimizer is also going to generate the plan. Now what happens is, for example, if the census information is not correct, then the government, thinks that there are only less number of people, and accordingly it is going to design the policies or the schemes and all. So similarly, if the statistics of the table are not up to date, then it might happen that the optimizer is generating worst execution plan. So instead of best execution plan, optimizer will generate worst execution plan, and this happens when the statistics of the table are not up to date. So for that, what we are going to do under object tuning is, as a first step, we are going to identify, what is the latest date on which the statistics were gathered. And some people will call it as gathering the statistics of a table, and some people will call it as analyzing a table. So either you call it as analyzing or you call it as gathering the stats, it's one and same. So basically it is going to uh, update the information about the table, and accordingly optimizer is going to generate the best plan. So for that we have a select query in order to identify whether our table is having the latest statistics or not. So for example, I am executing this in one of our databases. So if you look at here, it is not at all showing the statistics information at all. I mean, it is not showing you any date at all. And let us execute this in another database. And here it is showing you the latest date, 19th August 2013. So in this database we don't have any issues, but here if you look at in this database, you know, it is not only showing the old or the new date, but basically the column is blank. So that means the statistics of this table is not at all collected. So if this is the case, then optimizer is going to generate the worst execution plan for us. So that's the reason what we are going to do is we are going to do manual analyzing of the statistics. And how we need to do those things, we have some commands here. So you can have a look. So the first command we have is analyze table name, compute statistics. But this command we need to use only till 9i, and from 9i onwards we are going to use another command, execute dbms underscore stats dot gather underscore table underscore stats. In bracket you need to provide the schema name and the table name. So I'm just executing that. So after I execute this command, you can see it got analyzed to the latest date. So this is what one important step that we have here. So first we need to run that select query, and accordingly we need to execute this dbms underscore stats command. And what actually happens in you know inside whenever you run this gathering stats command, what happens internally is Oracle will go to each and every row of the table, and it will go to each and every column of the table, and based on that it will generate some statistical information. So whenever you have small tables, this command will work very faster. Just now you saw on EMP table it completed just like that. But if you try to execute the same command on huge number of rows, like 50 lakh rows, 1 crore rows, 2 crore rows and all, this analyzing is going to take lot of time, because it need to pass through each and every row. Suppose there is a table with 2 crore rows, and Oracle need to pass through each and every row till 2 crores it completed, it will definitely take some time. So that's the reason we have another option from Oracle, that is, instead of collecting the statistics, we can do something called estimating the statistics. So that is what point number 4 says. If the table contains huge number of rows, analyze is going to take time, as it is going to collect the information for each and every row. So in such cases, we can estimate the statistics rather than collecting them, and the two on some percentage of rows. So instead of performing the statistics collection on 100% of rows, we can do the statistical collection only on 40% or 30%, something like that. And then we have commands again. Again, the first command is till 9i, and second command is from 9i onwards. So here if you look at, we are going to use something called 40. So 40 here means we want to gather 40 percentage of the table for statistics collection. So out of 100%, we are going to just analyze only 40% of the table. Maybe because, as I said, the table is very large. And similarly, what Oracle usually recommends is whenever you analyze the table or whenever you gather the statistics of the table, you need to gather the statistics of index also. So for that we have the next two commands here. And if you want to analyze entire schema, so here till now whatever we saw is table by table. So instead of table by table, if you want to analyze entire schema at a shot, then you can make use of this particular command, dbms underscore stats dot gather underscore schema underscore stats. And if you want to analyze full database, then you would be using this gather database stats. So that means all the schemas, everything will be analyzed except base tables. And next two views are going to help you in order to analyze base tables also. So like this we have different levels. So depends on which level is suitable for us, whether schema level or table level or database level, we need to actually look into that one. And just give me a moment. Sorry guys, I just got a call. Okay, so that is how we are discussing about like various options that we have. So for example, if I want to go for schema level stats, then I would be using this command dbms underscore stats dot dot gather schema stats, and in bracket we are going to specify Scott. Oops. So, and when you do it for the entire schema, then automatically the tables, indexes, for everything it is going to collect the statistics. So we don't require to do any other object separately. Okay, then we have some issue in this database, so don't worry. So this is the command to do for entire database, and similarly we have other commands for base tables and etc. So anyone having queries before we move on to the other points? Yeah, we will be discussing that. Do you mean to say like which level we would be going? Am I right, Sanjay? Yeah, we will discuss that. In point number 5, we will be discussing about that. So any other questions? Okay. So let us move on to some notes. There are two notes below the comments. So the first note says, in Oracle 10G, Oracle is going to automatically collect the statistics for tables which are modified greater than 10%. So from yesterday to today, if the table information like the number of rows or any other information is modified more than 10%, then there is an automated job in Oracle 10G. Whenever you create a database, this job also will be created automatically. And this job, what it will do is, it is going to collect the statistics for those kind of tables which are modified greater than 10%. And this activity will happen every night 10 p.m. of the server time. But actually what happens is, due to some practical complications, it is recommended to not continue with this, and we can just disable this particular job. So for example, let's say you have 1 crore records row, a table with 1 crore rows. Now into that table, today you have inserted somewhere like 8 lakh records. Now even though when you look at the count 8 lakhs, it is very huge. But when you look at the percentage of modification, it is just 8 percentage of modification. So, but what Oracle is taking into consideration is either 10% or more than 10%. So that means even though you added 8 lakh rows to your table, and Oracle is not going to consider that into the statistic gathering job. And after that, if you do any select query on the table, it is going to give you slow performance, because 8 lakhs is a huge count. When you look at count wise, it is very huge. So that is why usually what people recommend is, you should not go and enable this job. Even though if it is enabled by default, you should actually go and disable this particular job. So that is what Oracle's expert suggestion is. And also, whenever you are executing this statistics gathering job manually, so then you need to do this in non-peak hours of the server time. So because this job, whenever you do gathering stats, it's going to take maximum CPU and maximum memory and all. So that's the reason you need to actually run these commands, when the server time is I mean, whenever the server is not having any load or during night time of the server, something like that. And coming to the other question, like because here we have table level, then schema level, then database level commands are there for gathering the statistics. So usually which will be preferred in real time? So that depends on what are all, what are all the types of or the categories of tables that are available. So if you look at point number 5, tables are actually divided into 3 categories. One we call it as the static tables. Uh, Basically static tables, the name itself is telling you the data inside these tables will be static. So once you insert one row, there will be no update, there will be no insert, there will be no delete. So that means that data is very static. So for those kind of tables, you would be going for analyzing monthly ones. Anyway, the modifications are not happening. So if the modifications are not happening, it is not necessary to go for daily analyze or weekly analyze. So that's the reason once in a month if you do that analyze, that will be fine. So that is one thing. And the second category that we have is semi-dynamic tables. That means the data inside these tables will change once in a while, even though not frequently, but once in a while it will be done. And for those kind of tables, you would be going for weekly analyze. So once in a week, you need to analyze that. And the third category that we have is dynamic tables, in which the data will be changed very frequently. So maybe every 1 hour also the data will change, or every day the data will change, something like that. So for those kind of tables, you need to go for daily analyze. So like this, you need to have 3 different categories. Now, another point here is, you may ask me a question like how as a DBA I would be knowing which table is dynamic, which table is static, or which table is semi-dynamic. My database may contain 1000 tables, but out of 1000, how I would know which category of tables belong, which table belongs to which category. So as a DBA, we don't require to bother about it. We need to just ask application team, and application team should provide us with this information. Like this is the list of static tables, this is the list of semi-dynamic tables, and this is the list of dynamic tables. So they need to actually provide the information to you. Whenever you request it, they need to do it. So that is how we'll be doing that. So anyone is having queries on this particular point? Okay. So then we have something like optimizer modes, and it's working functionality. So we will be discussing about this tomorrow. We will be discussing about the rule-based optimization and cost-based optimization, etc. points. So that is all we have for today. And before we close the call, if anyone is having any queries, just let me know. Not necessary, Sanjay. Why? Because when you are creating database manually or using DBCA, either if you want, you can enable it during creation itself. But anyway, we have the option to enable it afterwards also. So it is not required. So any more questions from anyone? Okay. Is that a 10G version or 11G? Okay. 11G, if you remember, we don't have UDUM, BDUM, and CDUM. 11G contains only one location, that is diagnostic underscore list, and that is the reason you are not able to see those locations. Yeah, diagnostic underscore list. Let me type it. This is the one, diagnostic underscore list. Yeah, you can check in alert log file, or it will be there in the P file also. If you say cat P file name, then in the list whatever it is going to show you, there you will be having this parameter diagnostic underscore list. It will be pointing to a location basically. No problem. So any more queries from anyone?